You wake up at 3 a.m. with your chest tight, not because something terrible happened, but because you said no. You finally said no to someone, and now your nervous system is screaming at you like you've committed a crime. Your mind replays the conversation on loop, their face when you declined, the slight shift in their tone, the half-second pause that felt like abandonment. And here you are, alone in the dark, wondering if you're selfish, wondering if you've destroyed everything by simply having a boundary. You've been kind your whole life. People call you thoughtful, caring, the one they can count on. And you are those things. But what they don't see is the exhaustion behind your smile. The way you mentally catalog everyone's needs in a room before you even consider your own. The way you've become fluent in reading micro-expressions, tiny shifts in energy, the atmospheric pressure of other people's emotions. You can sense disappointment before it's even fully formed in someone else's mind, and you'll do anything to prevent it. Here's what nobody tells you about being kind. It's supposed to be a choice. But for you, it stopped being a choice a long time ago. Somewhere in your childhood, kindness became a survival strategy. Being attuned, being helpful, being low maintenance. These weren't virtues you chose. They were adaptations you made to stay safe, to stay loved, to stay worthy of taking up space in a world that felt conditional. And now you're an adult who can't receive a compliment without deflecting it, who apologizes for things that aren't your fault, who feels guilt for having needs, who gives and gives and gives until you're running on fumes, and even then, you'll smile and say you're fine, because the alternative, being a burden, feels like death itself. This is the core paradox. The kindness that made you lovable is the same kindness that's making you invisible. The empathy that helped you survive is now the prison you can't escape. You learned to read the room so well that you forgot you're also in the room. You became so good at holding space for others that you vacated the space meant for you. And the most devastating part, you don't even realize you're doing it. This self-abandonment has become so automatic, so woven into your identity, that you genuinely believe this is just who you are. You think you're being selfless. But what if I told you that your kindness, the thing everyone admires about you, might actually be a trauma response? Let's establish something crucial. There is healthy kindness, and then there is compulsive caregiving. Healthy kindness flows from wholeness. It's the overflow of a person who knows their worth isn't contingent on their usefulness. Compulsive caregiving, on the other hand, is a frantic performance. It's kindness with a hidden agenda. Please don't leave me. Please don't be angry. Please confirm I'm worthy of love. What you're experiencing is called Fawn Response, one of the lesser-known trauma responses alongside fight, flight, and freeze. The Fawn Response is what happens when a nervous system learns that appeasing others is the safest way to navigate threat. As a child, maybe you had a parent whose mood was unpredictable. Maybe love felt conditional on your behavior. Maybe you witnessed conflict and learned that being the good one kept you safe. Your developing brain made a brilliant calculation. If I'm helpful enough, quiet enough, perfect enough, I can control the emotional climate. I can make myself safe. And it worked. That's the thing. It actually worked. You became the child who didn't cause problems, the teenager everyone's parents wished they had, the adult who's always there for others. But here's what that survival strategy cost you. It created what psychologists call structural dissociation, a fragmentation of self, where you learned to exile the parts of you that might be too much. Your anger, your needs, your disappointment, your authentic desires, all of it got locked away in a basement you don't have the key to anymore. The neuroscience here is critical. Your brain developed what Dr. Stephen Porges calls a hypervigilant social engagement system. Your vagus nerve, the neural superhighway connecting your brain to your body, learned to constantly scan for signs of relational threat. This is called neuroception, the subconscious detection of safety or danger in your environment. Except your system is miscalibrated. It reads neutral interactions as potential rejection. It experiences your own needs as dangerous data that could result in abandonment. Think of it like this. Your nervous system is a smoke detector that's so sensitive it goes off when you toast bread. Every interaction carries the weight of potential catastrophe. Someone doesn't text back immediately, your body floods with cortisol. You express a preference, your system registers it as existential risk. You've been living in a chronic state of relational hypervigilance, where connection, the thing you desperately want, is also the thing that terrifies you most. This creates what attachment theorists call anxious avoidant patterning. You crave intimacy but only feel safe when you're the caregiver. True vulnerability, being the one who needs, who asks, who takes up space, activates so profound terror that you'll unconsciously sabotage your own relationships before anyone can see the real you and decide you're not enough. The grief of perpetual self-abandonment is a particular kind of death. It's not dramatic, there's no funeral, you're still breathing, still moving through the world, but something essential has been buried alive. Carl Jung called this the murder of the self, the slow sacrifice of your authentic being on the altar of other people's comfort. You know what the deepest cost is? It's not even the exhaustion, though that's real. It's the loneliness, the profound, aching loneliness of being surrounded by people who love a version of you that isn't real. You've built an entire life as the helper, the listener, the dependable one. People need you, but do they know you? Do they know the parts of you that are messy, uncertain, angry, disappointed? Or have you only ever shown them the parts that are useful? This is the invisible grief. You're homesick for a self you've never been allowed to be. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you betray yourself. Every time you minimize your pain because someone else has it worse, you gaslight your own experience. Every time you apologize for existing, for taking time, for having feelings, for needing support, you reinforce the core belief that your worth is transactional, that love is something you earn through service, not something you deserve simply by being alive. The philosopher Martin Buber wrote about the I-thou versus I-it relationship. In I-thou, you meet another as a whole person, and they meet you in return. In I-it, people become functions, objects to be used. And here's the devastating irony. In your compulsive kindness, you've turned yourself into an it. You've objectified yourself as a resource for others. You're not a person with needs, you're a solution to other people's problems. And the fear underneath all of this, the terror that drives this whole mechanism, It's the fear that if you stop performing, if you stop being useful, if you reveal the full complexity of who you are, the neediness, the messiness, the imperfection, you will be abandoned. Not just left, but erased, as if your existence only becomes real through the act of serving others. This is what developmental psychologists call existential invisibility. You grew up feeling like your authentic self was somehow wrong or too much, so you learned to disappear, to make yourself small, to preemptively reject yourself before anyone else could. And now, even when you're physically present, you're emotionally absent. You're there, but you're not there. You've become a ghost haunting your own life. Simple moments become complex calculations. A friend asks how you are. The real answer is exhausted, overwhelmed, barely holding it together. But you can't say that. You scan their face. Do they actually want to know, or is this just social nicety? Will my honesty burden them? Will they see me differently? And before you even finish the calculation, you're already smiling and saying, "I'm good, how are you?" The moment passes. The truth dies unspoken, and the loneliness deepens. Let's talk about what this actually looks like in your adult life. Because these aren't just ideas, these are the daily realities that prove the pattern is still running. You might be someone who can't enjoy receiving. When someone does something kind for you, your immediate response is discomfort. You have to reciprocate immediately, restore the balance, make sure you're not in debt. Gift giving makes you anxious. Compliments feel like obligations. Help feels like weakness. You've lost the capacity to simply receive love without turning it into a transaction you need to repay. You might be someone who attracts takers. Because your boundaries are non-existent or invisible, you somehow always end up in relationships, romantic, platonic, professional, where you're the giver and they're the taker. And you can't even be mad about it because you never explicitly said you had limits. You trained people to expect unlimited access to your energy, your time, your emotional labor. And now you resent them for taking what you offered. You might be someone who self-sabotages success. When good things happen to you, when you're finally in the spotlight, when it's your turn to be celebrated, you feel profoundly uncomfortable. You deflect praise. You minimize your achievements. You make yourself smaller so others don't feel threatened. Because somewhere deep down, you believe that your success might hurt someone else, and their potential discomfort is more important than your actual accomplishment. You might be someone who cannot rest. Downtime feels like moral failure. Relaxation triggers guilt. You have to be productive, useful, achieving, or you feel like you're wasting your right to exist. Your worth is measured by your output, so stopping feels like dying. You've forgotten that human beings are not machines, that rest is not earned, it's required. You might be someone who over-explains and over-apologizes. You can't make a simple statement without adding 10 qualifiers. I might be wrong, but this is probably stupid, but sorry to bother you, but you apologize for having opinions, for taking time, for existing in a way that requires others to acknowledge you. You make yourself as small and unobtrusive as possible, hoping that if you're apologetic enough, people won't notice how much space you're taking up. You might be someone who becomes whoever others need you to be. You're a chameleon. With this friend, you're intellectual. With that one, you're funny. With your parents, you're the responsible one. With your partner, you're the supportive one. But who are you when no one's watching? You genuinely don't know anymore. Your sense of self has become so contingent on external validation that you've lost the ability to locate your own desires, preferences, and boundaries. You might be someone who feels responsible for other people's emotions. Someone's upset, you caused it, or you need to fix it. Someone's disappointed, it's your job to manage that. You carry other people's feelings like they're your own, constantly trying to regulate everyone's emotional state because you never learned that other people's feelings are their responsibility, not yours. You might be someone who only feels valuable in crisis. When everything's calm, you feel anxious and useless. But when someone needs you, when there's a problem to solve, a wound to tend, a crisis to manage, suddenly you have purpose. You've become addicted to being needed because it's the only time you feel certain of your worth. Here's what you need to understand. These are not personality traits. These are coping strategies. These are the behaviors of a nervous system that learned survival through self-erasure. And the first step toward change isn't fixing yourself, it's witnessing yourself. It's naming the pattern without judgment. It's saying, this is what I learned to do to stay safe. And it made sense then, but it's not serving me now. The unlearning begins with a radical concept. You are allowed to disappoint people. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to be imperfect, messy, angry, tired, unavailable, and still be worthy of love. Your worth is not contingent on your usefulness. You are not a resource to be depleted. You are a person who deserves to take up space.
So how do you heal from this? How do you reclaim yourself after decades of self-abandonment? The work begins with something psychologists call reparenting. Specifically, learning to give yourself what you never received. You have to become the person who validates your feelings, who sets boundaries on your behalf, who says your needs matter. Your pain is real. You don't have to earn the right to exist. This means practicing what feels impossible at first, disappointing people on purpose. Not to be cruel, but to build evidence for your nervous system that rejection is survivable. Start small. Say no to an invitation you don't want to attend. Don't apologize for being unavailable. Let someone be mildly inconvenienced by your boundary. And then, this is crucial, notice that you survived. Notice that the relationship didn't implode. Notice that their discomfort is not your emergency. You have to learn internal validation instead of external validation. This means checking in with yourself first before checking the room. Before you speak, pause and ask, what do I actually think? What do I actually feel? What do I actually want? And then honor that truth, even if it's inconvenient for others, especially if it's inconvenient for others. You need to engage in what Jungian analysts call shadow work, the deliberate reclamation of the parts of yourself you exiled. Your anger? It's not bad. It's information about your boundaries. Your neediness? It's not weakness. It's your humanity asking to be seen. Your selfishness? It's actually just self-preservation that's been demonized. These parts of you aren't the enemy. They're the lost children waiting to come home. Learn to practice softness without performance. This means allowing yourself to be imperfect in front of others without apologizing for it. Show up tired. Say you don't know. Admit you're struggling. Let people see you in your full, messy, human complexity, not because you're trying to be vulnerable as a strategy, but because you're finally too tired to pretend. And perhaps most importantly, grieve. Grieve the childhood you didn't get. Grieve the years you spent betraying yourself. Grieve the relationships built on a false version of you. Grieve the version of yourself you killed to stay safe. This grief is not weakness. It's the acknowledgement of a real loss. And only by facing that loss can you begin to build something new. The psychologist Donald Winnicott once wrote, "It is a joy to be hidden, and disaster not to be found." For years, you've been hidden. You've been performing a version of yourself that's palatable, helpful, non-threatening. And people loved that version. But disaster has been unfolding quietly inside you. because nobody has found the real you. Nobody has seen past the performance to the person underneath, terrified and exhausted and desperate to be known. The healing is in the finding. It's in the terrifying, liberating act of being fully seen. Not as a helper, not as a giver, not as the person who fixes things, but as a complete human being with contradictions, needs, limits, and longings. This doesn't mean you stop being kind. It means your kindness becomes a choice instead of a compulsion. It means you give from overflow instead of from depletion. It means you stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Here's your new truth. You are not responsible for everyone's comfort. You are not obligated to be small so others can be big. You are not required to betray yourself to maintain peace. You are allowed to be inconvenient. You are allowed to be too much. You are allowed to need, to want, to demand, to take up space without apology. The goal was never to be fixed. The goal is to become whole, to integrate the parts of you that were scattered in the service of others, to stop performing and start being, to trade